After the Exodus, the Israelites engaged in their first military combat as a people who had gained their freedom. The Amalekites attacked them at Rephidim, in the region of Mount Sinai. Following Moses' instructions, Joshua promptly assembled a fighting force. The battle extended throughout the major part of the day. Despite their inexperience in the art of warfare, Jehovah granted Israel the victory. About a year after the Exodus, a census was conducted to count those eligible for service in the army, males 20 years old and older. The total count was 603,550. A similar census toward the end of the wilderness journey showed a slight decrease in the army's strength, with a total of 601,730. The Levites were exempt from army duty and were counted separately. Exemptions from military service were granted, excluding the tribe of Levi. These exemptions included a man who has built a new house but has not yet inaugurated it. The man who has planted a vineyard but has not yet begun to use it. The man who has become engaged to a woman but has not yet taken her. In the case of marriage, he should not go out into the army but remain exempt at his house for 1 year. The man who is fearful and faint-hearted. Army arrangements after conquest of Canaan. After the general settlement in Canaan, there was little need for a large standing army. Border skirmishes were usually handled by the local tribes involved. When it was necessary to assemble a larger unified fighting force from several tribes, Jehovah raised up judges to take command. The call to arms was accomplished in different ways. Trumpet signals, messengers, or tokens were sent to stir the fighting men to action. Warriors appear to have furnished their own weapons, swords, spears, lances, darts, slings, bows, and arrows. The men generally were responsible for their own foodstuffs, hence Jesse sent provisions for his sons in Saul's army. There is one case, however, when 10% of the volunteers were set aside to procure provisions for the rest. Jehovah's presence in Israel's camp called for sanctity, ceremonial cleanness on the part of the soldiers. As sexual intercourse made a man unclean until the next day, under the law, both David and Uriah carefully avoided sex relations while on active duty. The armies of pagan nations often raped the women of conquered cities, but not so the victorious soldiers of Israel. Nor were they permitted for a month to marry a captive woman. Israel's ultimate victories depended on Jehovah, yet good handling of the army was necessary. This responsibility rested on appointed officers and chiefs over thousands and over hundreds. Priests were assigned to encourage and to give direction and purpose to the campaigns. During the days of the judges, the one whom Jehovah raised up led the army personally into battle. The judge also planned the tactics and strategy. He deployed his forces in various ways, which included division into units, typically 3, as well as surprise attacks, ambushes, frontal assaults, and securing river fords, among other tactics. Under the monarchy. Not satisfied with the theocratic arrangement under the judges, the people wanted to be, like all the nations, having a king to go out before them and fight their battles. Samuel, however, warned them that such a king would not fight single-handed. He would take their sons, and put them as his in his chariots and among his horsemen, and some will have to run before his chariots. The king was commander-in-chief, with the chief of the army second in authority. The size and strength of Saul's army varied according to the demands. On one occasion he selected 3,000 men, 1,000 of whom were under the command of his son Jonathan. For another exploit 330,000 were assembled. But compared with the highly mechanized armies of the Philistines, who, according to the Masoretic text, were capable of mustering 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and people like the grains of sand, for multitude, as they did at Michmash, Israel appeared ill-equipped. It happened on the day of battle that not a sword or a spear was found in the hand of any of the people, except Saul and Jonathan. During the reign of David the army of Israel was greatly improved, both in size and efficiency. There were well over 300,000 men equipped for war that came to Hebron and turned the kingship of Saul over to David. Non-Israelites also served in David's army. David retained many of the older organizational plans of the army, such as holding the position of commander-in-chief himself and appointing field commanders like Joab, Abner, and Amasa, with leaders over thousands and over hundreds under their command. However, David also introduced some innovative plans. He implemented a system of monthly rotation, dividing the soldiers into 12 groups of 24,000, totaling 288,000. This system ensured that a soldier typically served for only 1 month each year. It's important to note that this didn't mean that all 24,000 soldiers from 1 month came from the same tribe. Instead, each tribe contributed its share of the monthly quota throughout the year. Chariots, mobile firing platforms, were highly prized by the Babylonians, Assyrians, and Egyptians for their speed and maneuverability. They thus became fitting symbols of military power of the leading world empires. Under David, Israel's greatest military commander, the army in its entirety was composed of the foot soldier with his hand weapons, sword, spear, bow, or sling. David must have remembered that Jehovah counseled against relying on the horse for victory, that Pharaoh's horses and chariots were pitched into the sea by Jehovah, and that Jehovah opened the floodgates of heaven on Sisera's 900 war chariots with iron sides, so that the torrent of Kishon washed the enemy away. Therefore, as Joshua hamstrung captured horses and burned enemy chariots, David did the same with horses seized from Hadadezer, king of Zobah. He hamstrung all except 100 of the many horses captured from the king of Zobah. In a song David explained how his enemies concerned themselves with chariots and horses, but, as for us, concerning the name of Jehovah our God we shall make mention. The horse is a deception for salvation. As the proverb says, the horse is something prepared for the day of battle, but salvation belongs to Jehovah. With the rule of Solomon a new chapter was written in the annals of Israel's army. His reign was comparatively peaceful, yet he multiplied horses and chariots. For the most part these horses were purchased and imported from Egypt. Whole cities had to be built throughout the territory to accommodate these new military divisions. However, Jehovah never blessed this innovation of Solomon, and with his death and the dividing of the kingdom came the decline in Israel's army. As Isaiah later wrote, "Woe to those going down to Egypt for assistance, those who rely on mere horses, and who put their trust in war chariots, because they are numerous, and in steeds, because they are very mighty, but who have not looked to the Holy One of Israel and have not searched for Jehovah himself." During the divided kingdom. Following the division of the kingdom, there was constant hostility between Judah and Israel. Rehoboam's successor Abijah had only 400,000 men in his army when Jeroboam came against him with 800,000. In spite of being outnumbered 2-1, the southern kingdom proved successful because they leaned upon Jehovah. Israel lost 500,000 men. In addition to intertribal strife, there was the external antagonism from the pagan nations round about. Israel was obliged to maintain a standing army because of provocative foreign relations with Syria to the north. Judah also had to resist the advances of pagan armies. On one occasion Egypt invaded Judah and took away much booty. At another time Ethiopia came against Judah with an army of 1 million men and 300 chariots. King Asa's forces were only 580,000, but when he began to call to Jehovah his God, Jehovah defeated the Ethiopians, and not a single one was left alive. Again, when Moab, Ammon, and the Ammonim came up against Jehoshaphat, although he had a force numbering 1,160,000, Jehoshaphat set his face to search for Jehovah, who assured him, "The battle is not yours, but God's." Military history was made on that occasion, for a chorus of trained voices went out ahead of the armed men, singing, "Give praise to Jehovah." In confusion the enemy forces destroyed each other. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, leave your comments below and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching, God bless.